싶었어요. Dumba Jumden de Jen Java Da Jumba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Riwa Dan Shamsu Demba Devara Java Jiden Jemba Jebu Deve Kalo Jorwa Lana Meva Lada Menam Je Dumba Sanje Jumden de Pe Java Shaja Tuba La Chazelo Jedo Yazo Che Ho Demba Jomden de Dejen Sheva Tajomba Yandaba Zobe Sanje Riwa Dan Shabzu Demba Dewara Sheva Jigden Chemba Jebun Deve Kalo Jorwa Lana Meva Lada Menam Je Dumba Zanje Jumden de Bejawa Shaja Tuba La Chazel Chudu Jasu Che Ho Dumba Jumden de Dejen Shaba Tajumba Yanda Zobe Zanje Riba Da Shabsu Demba Dewara Sheba Jigden Chemba Jebun Dube Kalu Jurwa Lana Meva Lada Menam Je Tomba Sanje Chomden de Pejawa Shaja Tuba La Shaze Chudu Jaso Je Ho Sanje Chudan Soje Chonama La Chanju Padu Tane Jaso Dagi Chuji Jebe Sonamanje Dola Penje San Dobara Sho Sanje Chudan Soje Chonama La Chanju Padu Tane Jaso Dagi Chuji Jebe Sonamanje Dola Penje San Dobara Sho Sanje Chudan Soje Chonama La Chanju Padu Tane Jaso Dagi Jeje Jebe Sonama Je Dola Penje Sanje Dobara Sho. Good morning, good morning. I just looked at the comment section there. I see some of you who have been very consistent, and I think you are all die-hard. You really have the stamina, because I noticed that these past few classes, because it is quite tough, there's what you call repeated bombardment, and I can see that not many people are interested in listening to that kind of teaching. I think, including myself, deep down we all desire or wish to have a lasting happiness, to be free from suffering, even to be free from the slightest pain or suffering. But we don't have the stamina to really work for it. We are always, our tendency is always to look for something easy, simple, instant kind of a result. But unfortunately, when it comes to Dharma practice, when it comes to achieving lasting happiness, when it comes to what do you call, getting liberated or being freed from pain and suffering, there is no simple way, there is no fast way, there is no easy way. We have to put effort. We need to persevere. In Lama Choba, we always recite this. Lenje zamshi nyebe tajurde, nyega nyurdo, jigbe sutongne, tume tsede chawe miyingbar, tunne nyingbo lambar chinje lobs, which is translated as realizing how this body of freedom and richnesses is found but once, is difficult to obtain, and is quickly lost. I seek your blessings to make it worthwhile and take its essence, without being distracted by the meaningless affairs of this life. That's what we recite, and that's what we are supposed to really pray from our heart. So what we are really saying is, what we are really requesting our gurus is to bless us so that we can make this life worthwhile and take its essence. And what is hindering us, what is preventing us, is being distracted by the meaningless affairs of this life. So we pray that without being distracted by the meaningless affairs of this life. The question is, how seriously do we take these verses? Do we even really believe that these, what we are obsessed with, what our time is occupied with, the things that we are occupied with our life, do we really see it as meaningless? So from the Dharma point of view, what we are involved, what we invest our time and effort is not a meaningful thing to do. First of all, what we get involved in, what we try, the efforts that we put in, it does not guarantee even happiness in this lifetime, let alone future lives. Instead, pursuing all these worldly things, we end up creating more negative karmas, which bind us, or which makes our knot tighter, the knot that keeps us, that bind us to samsara even tighter. Despite our wish to be free from samsara, the actions that we take brings us even deeper into samsara. So here what Shantideva is saying, that if we really want to get out of this, if we really want to achieve liberation or Buddhahood, then we need to contemplate on these things that are hindrances to our practices. So if one is serious about wanting to achieve these, what you call realizations, if we really want to progress in our spiritual practices, then we realize that there are the worldly affairs that prevent us. So in order to help us release those, or in another word is like loosen these grips, or to loosen our attachment or clinging to these worldly things, we can use these lines, these verses to contemplate. Sometimes, I see the benefit of going to a secluded place to do practice. I see the benefit, but then I cannot leave my home. I cannot leave my family. I cannot part with my this and that. So when these thoughts comes to hinder or prevent you from doing this, so we should reflect, we should contemplate on these lines that Shantideva has stated here. So these lines are to help us reduce our attachment. So, just to recap, so in our last class, Shantideva discussed the qualities of remaining in secluded place, or what you call solitude. So first one he lists is that when you go to a secluded place, remote place, so what you are surrounded by are trees, caves, and animate objects. So when you are in that kind of environment, there are less distractions. You don't have to try to please people. You don't have to fear others' rejection. Remember, one of the greatest fear of people is fear of rejection. People do all kinds of things because out of fear of rejection. They fear that they will be rejected by their peers, their communities, their friends, their colleagues. So people keep doing things just to make other people happy. So when you are in a remote area in the jungle, when you are living alone, you don't have to please people. And you don't have to worry about other people's criticism. You are spared from all that criticism and insults or whatnot. So that's why Shantideva says that, when might I dwell with those whose company is a delight? Because trees and all these non-living things will not revel. And then when you are in that kind of place, you have the full freedom. These I mean, this is based in those ancient times. Those, let's say, the abandoned caves or abandoned temples. So there is no one claiming possession of the place or the ruined temple. So there are no obligations. You have the full freedom. And then, because you are living that kind of life, life is much simpler. You don't need too many things. So as long as you get your basic needs, like food and water and shelter, that's enough. And because you have so little, there's no fear of being robbed by thieves or robbers. So given all that condition, so you have more time. Many of the retreaters in Tibet, they survive on what is called tsamba, the Tibetan staple food. It's a flour made from roasted barley. So it's dinner, lunch, breakfast is tsamba. So when I went to Tibet in 1993, it was very simple. Life over there is very simple. So they have in front, in the house, every house, I think, they have this wooden box partitioned. So one part is filled with tsamba, another part is filled with dry cheese. It's a powdered kind of a cheese. And then on top of it, there's a big chunk of butter. So when any visitors come, whether it be in the morning, it be in the afternoon, it be nighttime, whoever comes, they will pour a cup of what we call black tea, and then push that wooden tray. So they drink part of the tea, and then they put a bit of butter, cheese, and then put that tsamba, and then make a dough out of it. And then once they have the dough, they hold that dough in one hand and then ask for more, refill their black tea. And that's their, if the person came at breakfast time, that's their breakfast. If they have come during the lunchtime, that's their lunch. Likewise, dinner time. So it's so simple. Here, breakfast, lunch, dinner, it takes an hour to prepare. And sometimes you're like, oh, what should I cook? You have so many choices. Shall I cook pasta? Shall I cook soup noodles? Shall I cook rice? What shall I cook for accompanying that dish? So we waste so much time just for preparing our meals. So Shantideva was saying they're trying to encourage us that if we are looking for a simpler life that provides, that that enables us to have more time to focus on the practice, then the best place is to go into this kind of secluded, isolated, remote place. That's why the monasteries, Tibetan word for monastery is gomba. Gomba means kind of remote, isolated. That's the whole point. In Tibet, most of the monasteries are so isolated from the community. But in India and also we don't have the what you call land to be in the jungles. These are all to avoid distractions. When you will have a household, it is difficult. So just to reiterate the points that I made in our last class, we may feel that at this time, what Shantideva is suggesting are impossible for us. Of course, nothing is impossible. But you feel that I cannot do such things this life. But that's okay. But what we should do is to make prayers. At least in next life to have such conditions. To be born as monks and nuns. Even if one is not born as monks or nuns, but at least have the condition to focus on Dharma practice and not entangled in the worldly obligations. And in this lifetime, we can also do something about it. Maybe once in a while, go for retreat. Many places offer 10 days retreat, 7 days retreat, weekend retreat. You can go and enjoy and experience for yourself how wonderful it is to be able to be away from all that messiness. How wonderful to experience some sense of calmness and serenity. And then one get encouraged. I have friends who went to those 10 days retreat. And once they have gone there, it's like they cannot stop. It's like every year they must go. It was such an enriching experience that they always want to go back. And once you have experienced that, then you will make prayers, and your prayers will be very strong because it really comes from your heart. So my point is, what Shantideva is listing all these verses is to help us to contemplate when we are opposed by all these attachments. I see these benefits there, but I cannot do because I am this and with this and this. So when such thought occurs, you sit down and then contemplate on the faults, on the shortcomings of a house life, of these worldly obligations. Then if one is able to do that repeatedly, then one will be able to at least release one knot at a time. And finally, the final knot will come off. And then one can do all these things. But if from the beginning, if you just put this barrier that, oh, this is not for me, I cannot do, then that's it. There will be no progress. But if you try and make prayers, beginning with the prayers, then there will come a time that you will be able to do so. Okay, let's now continue. Yeah, I wanted to bring this in. We have discussed this in the 37 practices of our Bodhisattvas. Remember when I talk about the three poisoners? The mind of attachment to loved ones wavers like water. So when you in a lay community or when you live a household life, these are part and parcel. These are bound to happen. So the minds of attachment to loved ones wavers like water. The mind of hatred of enemies burns like fire. The mind of ignorance, which forgets what to adopt and what to discard, is greatly obscured. Abandoning one's fatherland is the Bodhisattva's practices. So there is kind of a shortcoming. On the other hand, if we rely on solitude, if we live a life of solitude, then it says, when harmful places are abandoned, because when you are in remote place, secluded place, so it is that when harmful places are abandoned, disturbing emotions gradually diminished, because there's less and less objects of attachment or aversion. Without distraction, in that place, there's less of distraction. Without distraction, virtuous endeavors naturally increase. So it's like the weighing scale. All these negative emotions goes down while the virtues goes up. So negative, afflictive emotions arises because of these, what we see, what we hear. Of course, mind plays a big role. But what we see and what we hear can affect so much. And then being clear-minded, definite understanding of the Dharma arises. So when we live in this kind of world, in a busy world, where you have to constantly, your brain is constantly working, it is difficult even to calm down, calm your mind, let alone do any insightful reflection. So when you are free of all this, your mind is clearer. You have less things to worry. And then when you use that mind on Dharma understanding, then one's understanding becomes much clearer. And then conviction in Dharma will arise. So that's why it says, resorting to secluded places is the Bodhisattva's practice. So just to remind. And then while we are at this, maybe I will remind something else that we have discussed long time. So Kadamba masters, they have just called Devashi. I don't have a literal translation, so it goes something like this. Enters mind to entrust mind to Dharma, entrust Dharma to beggar's life, entrust beggar's life to death, entrust death to an empty cave. So this is all to help us, reduce these worldly concerns, because worldly concern is the worst enemy of our Dharma practice. So it is very dangerous. So these worldly concerns, it has, of course, grosser level, and it has a very subtle these concerns, subtle level of worldly concerns. So they seep into our mind, even during practice. One of the examples given in the commentary is that even those retreaters, they have abandoned the fatherland or whatever it is, the household life. They are now in caves for years. But the commentary says that sometimes the worldly concern seeps in, such as, oh, what are people thinking about me? Are they thinking positively about me? Are they saying that, wow, he has been in retreat for many years, he's doing a fantastic job, he is a real practitioner? Sometimes these thoughts arises. So these are worldly concerns. So it is very important to really counter these thoughts. So these are what is being practiced by the Kadamba masters. So the first one says, entrust mind to your Dharma. Lubu chola te. That means your main goal, your main trust, main goal, main purpose is to practice, nothing else. The pursuit of wealth, fame, status, these are not your goals. Main goal is to practice Dharma. So when you have that kind of thought, when you are able to generate that kind of thought, what arises at the same time is, oh, if I simply focus on my Dharma, then how about my resources? Who is going to feed me? Will I have a nice house to live in? Will I have nice food to eat? So at that time, entrust Dharma to a beggar's life. So you worry that because you are so dedicated, so committed to only Dharma practice, I may become beggar, I may become homeless. But Kadamba Master is saying is that when such thought arise, we have to think that as long as I am able to practice Dharma, it doesn't matter whether I become a homeless person or a beggar. I have taken so many lives in the past, and all those lives I wasn't able to do anything meaningful. And this time, I am going to do something meaningful. And in the process of doing that, even if I have to become homeless, it's like, I don't mind. As long as I can do Dharma practice, I am willing to endure any hardship. That's what is meant by entrust Dharma to a beggar's life. Lubu cholate, chubu tanglate. Then entrust beggar's life to death. Then so, oh, if I become homeless, and if I become a beggar, I have to beg, I have to eat what people give me, and I have no place to stay. So I may die because of not having enough food or shelter. So when such thought comes to prevent you from Dharma practices, at that time we have to think that entrust beggars life to death. That means no matter what happens to me, even it causes me my death, as long as I can practice Dharma, I am going to commit to Dharma practice. And then finally, this subtle worldly concerns. Oh, in that, even that is okay. Then how about if I die? My body, my corpse, will be somewhere in between the caves, maybe in an empty cave. Nobody to take care of my dead body. So when such thought comes to our mind to prevent us from Dharma practice, that's when we say the entrust death to an empty cave. It doesn't matter. Even I die there in an empty cave, nobody knows and hears about it. Even my body, of course, will rot. I may not get a proper, cremation or funeral. But as long as I am able to practice Dharma, I will commit my time and effort in doing so. I don't care where my dead body lies. So that's what Kadamba masters. Then there's something called the three things. When you really are committed to practicing Dharma, three things will happen. First, midene pu. That means you will be no longer considered as a normal, ordinary human being. Because a real practitioner is kind of, what is the word? I don't know whether I'm right using it properly. Kind of egocentric. It's a bit different. Real practitioner won't do, won't behave or won't conduct in a way that most of the people behave. Just to give an example. So most people try to please people, say nice things about them, tell lies. But a real practitioner may speak his mind, may be honest, and people don't like that. So anyway, because you are so committed to Dharma practice, you are not concerned about your welfare. You are not concerned about acquiring a big house, big car, lots of money. You don't care about your status. You don't care about what people think of you. Then what happens is, you become like a street dog. You don't have fine clothes to wear. You may appear even disheveled. You live on people's generosity. You go and beg food. So that's like street dogs. But that means, but when you die, you will be amongst, here it says, literal translation, devas. That means your next life, your rebirth, will be a good one. So that's what the real practitioner is supposed to do. Let go of all this. But as I said before, this kind of practice is not for everybody. Some people cannot even fathom, cannot even imagine living that kind of life and doing practice. But then in the past they were. Most of the practitioners have very little, but they are able to progress. They are able to climb the ladders of their spiritual, what do you call, building or whatever you call that. So, now back to where we stopped. Verse 31. 31, where is 31? Okay, here. Lüdi chikbu jungwa yang tenji gebe sharu da shikde sosur gegyu na zawa shenda mö chi kös. So this is to help us reduce our clinging attachment to our loved ones. So Shantideva, remember earlier discussed about the benefits of living a secluded life or a solitude life. Going into forest and jungle or where it's remote, there's no distraction. So when you hear that, we may think that our reason may be that, oh, the reason why I don't want to go to such place is that I love my loved ones. I still have my loved ones. I don't want to separate from them. So that is, I think, many people's reason. That is what is trapping us. That is what preventing us to go and do this kind of a practice. So to counter that, when such thought arises, Shantideva said that we have to think this way. Although this body arose as one thing, the bones and flesh with which it was created will break up and separate. How much more so will friends and others? So basically saying that even our body, when it first come to life, it came with bones and flesh all together. But in the end, it will be disintegrated. It will be separated, will break up and separate. First, all that flesh will rotten away, and then the bones, even the bones, it may even turn into different pieces, break into different pieces. So something that came together from the beginning can separate, will separate. So if that is the case, then is that how much more so will friends and others? Our friends and loved ones, we did not born together. As we progress in our life, as we grow, we kind of collected those friends, loved ones, even your spouses, husbands and wives. So the main point is that why are you so attached to it? Because eventually it is to be separated. Even your own that body, bones and flesh, will separate in the end. So we don't have freedom to not to part. We will separate anyway. So that's one way to reflect, to reduce our attachment to our loved ones. So in the commentary they cited two verses. There was a quotation from sutras. One says, Tala shindu pangbe lu deyang shiwe tuna zashik shindu bor lenji gebe sharu ni yang che wongme tani chikuru kyambe na lagi wangi kangdu kegyuru na tewe luji chedo tigme jahas. So the one we pressure so much, our body which we pressure so much, will eventually break like the way a clay pot breaks. The clay pot, if you drop a clay pot, it will shatter into countless pieces. So our body will eventually kind of separate into many pieces. Lenji gebe sharu ni janche, even the bones and flesh, even though they came together, but they will separate, eventually separate. Ome tani chiburu kyambe na, laji wanji kandu kegyu na, tewe luji chedo. So basically saying that given that situation, given that condition, so do not engage in negative action, negative karma, in the name of this body. Gedan tikwa matoba dowa thamje chi lo ne, ganyan kyuji metang wat kembar zoyo la lekbar chus. When the time comes, only virtuous and non-virtuous actions will follow you. The rest, how dear and how close that person is, we have to go alone. So it says, Kembar zola lekwarche, so act wisely, accordingly. And there are other reasons why it is pointless to be so attached to our loved ones. Kena chikbu ke yurshin, chinang tini chikchi de, tunye keshin milena, gegje zawe chishik chas. So we can argue again to say that, oh, these loved ones are the ones, whom I share my happy times and difficult times, so I cannot leave them behind. So to counter that, Shantideva says, at birth, I was born alone. So these are, as I mentioned earlier, when such thought arises, to counter that, use Shantideva's lines. Shantideva is just recommending us that when such thoughts arises within us to prevent us from all this, so these are a few suggestions that we can contemplate on so that it can reduce our attachment to whoever we are attached to. So it's at birth I was born alone, and at death too I shall die alone. As this pain cannot be shared by others, what use are obstacle-making friends? It's self-explanatory, isn't it? At birth I was born alone. Nobody born with friends. And at death too I shall die alone. At this, so I think this is an important point. I want you to highlight this. and at death too I shall die alone. As this pain cannot be shared by others, what use are obstacle-making friends? So this obstacle-making friends in Tibetan was Gegje Zawe Chishi Chas. So obstacle-making not only to prevent you from going to do these practices, but also even at the time of death, if your loved ones are not well educated, I mean in the sense of importance at the time of death, if they are not aware of this, it can be big obstacles. They can be the worst enemy at the time of your death. So what happens when you have so many loved ones? At the time of death, when you are on your deathbed, and when you are breathing your last breath, you will be surrounded by loved ones, and they will be wailing and crying, and all kinds of things will be happening at that time. So what does it do? Do their wailings help you prevent from dying? Will their sadness, will their sorrow help us or prevent us from dying? No. No matter how much tears your loved one shares, how much wailing and crying they do, it will not help you at the time of death, but instead it will distract one from focusing on a virtuous mind. Remember, it is so important to have a virtuous mind at the time of death. But when you hear all these loved ones crying and all that, what will happen? You will be attachment, you will be saddened, and then you will have this, what we call meditative docha. That means this desire not to be separated from them. That is attachment. This strong desire, that is not good for your future rebirth. Let me share this story which happened recently in Tibetan community. I think it is okay to share because they shared it so that this will not happen to other families. What happened was a Tibetan family. So the elderly father was diagnosed, I think, with cancer some time ago, and he was nearing his death. But it looks like the sons and daughters, his children, are not that aware of the things to do at the time of death. So when they notice that their father is kind of what is that word now? Getting worse. When they see that he's really struggling and it's like it's going to die, somehow they called ambulance. And then the ambulance people came, and of course they will do what they are trained to do. So they started doing all those medical things. They undressed him, put it down on the floor, and then they started doing all those trainings that they have received. And he died in the middle of that. And then while the medical team is attending, and the other children, family members were crying and wailing and all this, So that is not a good way to go. So because of that, they share this story so that others won't do it, because at that time they didn't know that this will happen. So there's nothing medical people can do at this time. The best is to help the patient go peacefully, if possible, with a virtuous mindset. So Tibetan practice, when somebody is dying, we will not encourage close family members to surround them. We will not let people cry in front of them, but instead we will keep telling them to think of, take refuge in Three Jewels, or think of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, or whoever their guru is. Concentrate on that. Don't think of your family members. Don't think of these worldly affairs. So that is why I think we discussed in the class before that there are few things that one need to do before you go. What is called unfinished business. If there are any unfinished business, sort all that out. Have a proper will. Give all the instructions. We normally say that Segi tama chinlap nga gi tama kachim. So the translation goes like this. The final word should be the will. You just give instruction what to do, what not to do, that's it. And the final food should be a blessed pills. Final drink should be tutsi or the nectar or any blessed water. We practice that, we do that, try to do that, so that the dying person can die peacefully. It would be so disturbing to hear the loved ones crying, circling around you and crying. And sometimes, I think it's in the West, they purposely bring their pets to the dying patient. I don't know how that works. From our point of view, that is to help generate attachment to that pet. So that's what it means. At birth I was born alone, and at death too I shall die alone. As this pain cannot be shared by others. When we were alive, we have engaged in so many countless negative actions in the name of our loved ones. But when it comes to experiencing the consequences, reaping the fruits, even if they want to share, they cannot. We alone have to experience it. If there was such a thing, all that Buddha and Bodhisattvas would have done for us, and we would be free of all the negative karma consequences. So what use are obstacle-making friends? So if you find that your friends or loved ones are the ones that is preventing you from doing Dharma practices, then reflecting on this, contemplating on these words, these lines, may help. And another way to think, another way to contemplate on is this. Lamda tu ne shubanam chedar ne zin chetar, tishin sibe lam shubam, kewe ne yongsu zins. Like those who journey on the road, who pause and lodge along the way, beings on the pathways of existence seize upon the lodging of their rebirth. So basically, it's like viewing your loved ones and friends as what do you call, as a what you call, as a one of those in the tour groups, or one of those tourists. When we travel to some place, you check into a hotel room, you encounter so many people in that hotel room where you are going to stay. Even though you checked into the same hotel room, but next morning, everybody will go their own way. Some will fly to south, some will fly to north, some will fly to west. Maybe some will be with you. So we have to view them as people who travel with you on a journey. Just as one who has undertaken journey takes the lodging, so does one who travels in the cycle of existence take lodging in rebirth. So like that analogy, so we at this stage, we are born in the same family or became born as our loved ones. But when we die, we move on. We go to different places. I mean, to but we take different births. So this, I think, is helpful, very helpful when you think this way. I think I shared with you all, when my father died, after the 49 days, and even after, I think, some time, I couldn't stop this thought. Where could have he born? This thought keeps coming, wondering his next rebirth. And then one day, it kind of dawned upon me that, why am I so focused on this life's father's rebirth? After all sentient beings have been my father at one time. This life's my father. Others were or had been my father in one time, or even many times. But I'm not concerned about the other, the well-being of the other fathers, other beings who had been my father in the past. So why am I bogged down on this life's one father when I have thousands of fathers? So that really helped me. After that, that curiosity, or that wonderment, or whatever you call that, that's completely stopped. So this is important, that our loved ones are only for this life. But if we are being so, attached to them, because of them being our loved ones, then we have to be so attached to all the sentient beings, even your enemies, because they have been our loved ones at one point. So when you think that way, then the attachment to one tiny person, tiny object, kind of, what do you call, is kind of melts away. Because it's just one tiny or one single person from countless beings. So basically, it's saying that even though we feel that that person have been our loved ones for such a long time, but he's saying that in the past they may not be, in the future they may not be. So why are you so focused on this? So when we think this way, it will help us to reduce. Like those who journey on the road, who pause and lodge along the way, beings on the pathways of existence seize upon the lodging of the birth. Where are we now? 34. So this one is like, we have to, if we decide, if we want to go to do practice in a remote place, this is like, must do now, right away. Jigden kune tongshindu, chisi kibu shi ni, tele teni matekba, tisi tu ni na su songs. So we may say that, oh, so at the moment, I have all these loved ones to take care of. I won't be able to go right away. So when you have this, when this kind of thought arises, so this is how we can reflect on. Until the time comes for the body to be supported by 4 pallbearers, while the worldly stricken with grief, until then I shall retire to the forests. So until one is hoisted by 4 men and mourned by the world. So when you have loved ones, basically saying that before you die, because we don't know when death comes. At the moment, we are still alive. While we are alive, we should go and do practice, until the time comes for the body to be supported by 4 pallbearers. So in India or in Tibet, this is how. I think even here, the coffin, yeah? So before your coffin is carried by these people, and before when people surround around your body and mourn, he's saying that you should go to a secluded place to practice. Until then, I shall retire to the forest. Before all this happens, there's a verse which I like very much from by Gongdang Rinpoche. Chojeje sanyi charje bar chiduji tanyi terin charnyen yus. tarango rangi maluvar chochena tari nine chi sejen. I think most of us know that it is important to practice, and most of us want to practice, seriously want to practice, but we always push it aside, saying that, oh, let me first finish this. I have this thing to do. I have to do this. I will do serious practice when I retire. I will seriously practice when I finish this project. But Gungdang Rinpoche is saying that even if you say that tomorrow I will practice, you never know. Your practicing tomorrow will come first, or your death tomorrow come first. So therefore, he says that don't deceive yourself. If you are really serious about practicing Dharma, then he says that practice right away, right now. Don't wait for things to complete or things try to finish the things that you think you have to do, because the worldly things, there will be no end. So it is said that worldly things, worldly affairs are like plucking or shaving your hair. The more you shave, the more you pluck, the more it grows. Therefore, the more you need to attend to. So these are powerful instructions. Until the time comes for the body to be supported by 4 pallbearers, while the worldly stand around stricken with grief, until then I shall retire to the forest. So the takeaway is, first of all, we have to practice Dharma if we desire, if we wish happiness in the future. Not only we have to practice Dharma, we have to practice now, because we don't know when the death will hit us. Okay, I think that's for today, and then we will continue. Let's do the dedication prayer. Dagi jini zawe gyawa de tendan jowa kunla kangben da gyabara chuzun losan tawa ye tenbe nyingbo ringdo seje sho jambe bawe jedara gyamba da kundo zambo tenyang tejen do teda kunge jesu taloj gyawa deda damje rabdo ngo dezo jebe gyawa damje je ngowa kangla chodo ngaba de dagi gebe sawan digun zambo jeje rabdo ngo barangis. Thank you.